are quite good. Attack warning. Is it for real? Attack warning is for bloody real.
Live from Colorado Springs, the Drop Culture Podcast.
I want to confirm, is this an exercise? Roger, copy. This is not an exercise.
Come on, quick, get down. 1, 2, 3.
Welcome, everybody, to the Drop Culture Podcast. This is that podcast where we pick up that piece of pop culture you forgot about or missed, shine it up real nice, and cram it in your ear holes. I'm Dan.
I'm Brock.
And we're going to bring you another fine film. This time we're going with what, Brock?
Cyborg.
From?
1988?
1988's Cyborg.
Was it 1980?
I think it was
1989.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's
which you could...
1989 Cyborg.
Yes.
Unless you lived in the Philippines, then it was First Hero.
Or it was Masters of the Universe Part 2.
Or it was also called Slinger.
Uh-huh.
Which makes sense.
The whole idea behind it is really cool, and yeah, I think it was executed really well for what they had.
100%.
Because this was like the last release for Canon, wasn't it? Or something like that.
It was right there. If not, yeah.
They thought that this movie would bring them back, but it didn't.
Yeah. But it did make some money based on the budget, because it had about a $500,000 budget.
Made $9 million.
Yeah, $9 to $10 million, depending on what you read. That's pretty awesome.
Yes, it is. I mean, that's fucking extreme, though. To go from basically a movie that they combined three different, because the reason why the budget was so low is because they had already tied up almost like over $2 million in two other movies.
What were those movies, Brock?
Masters of the Universe,
yes.
Part 2, which was supposed to be taking place in, art again here, not in Eternia. But then in like a wasteland or some shit like that, which I don't fucking understand why they would do that with He-Man.
They don't.
No.
They don't.
Yes. And then it was Spider-Man.
Yeah.
The original incarnation of Spider-Man. Back in the day, they had promos for it, everything. They even had a guy chosen for Spider-Man, but they could never get it done. That could have possibly been one of the better beginnings of the entire MCU, because at that point we only had, and it was after that they did the New Zealand ones, where they did, what was it, Punisher? The Dolph Lundgren Punisher, which was 89, 90, whatever it was, 91, something like that, around there.
Yeah.
But, Canon was pretty much going down the toilet at this point, because they had sunk so much money into everything else, and they really weren't getting that big of a return. You would have you would have thought that something like this, they had already put all that $2 million or so into it, and then just had to throw another $500,000 on top of it.
Well, they used a lot of those sets,
right?
Which was great. They
costumes,
reused what they had already sunk money into. So
paintball guns,
yeah. This is true.
Well, it's crazy to think that a character from the Masters of the Universe Mattel fucking toy line costume was on a main bad guy in this.
Yes.
Fender.
Yes.
He had the fucking chainmail on, so of course. And nobody knew how to clean glasses in that age.
No.
It was just all dirty.
Yeah.
It's like, come on, you just rub a cloth on that shit, man. Come on. You got it from an old Phillips 76 that was just rotting in the dirt.
Well, so this is a Jean-Claude Van Damme vehicle. This is right as he was like, Bloodsport came out the year before this, and that was really his breakaway, like Frank Duke, somebody now,
Well, I'm making a true story about a lie.
Yes.
So it's basically Tropic Thunder before Tropic Thunder.
Kind of, yeah,
Yeah.
kind of.
Frank Dukes was a big fucking liar. He never went to the Kumite. I think he heard about it. I never stole a sword. I don't know what it was. I know that it wasn't real. But that's where, I mean, the Kumite and Bloodsport is where we get all of our fighting games.
Yeah, 100%.
You know,
That's where we got Mortal Kombat.
Mortal Kombat. I mean,
Street Fighter, if we want to stay in the Jean-Claude Van Damme universe.
Exactly.
Threw up a little bit in my mouth when I said that.
I've seen that movie probably about 10, 15 times in the theaters. No shit.
Well, there's that.
It only costs $1.
And you spent $14 more than you should have.
Yes. That was allowance money.
Yeah, there you go.
But yeah, no. This is a great idea. Albert Pune is a director.
Yes.
Which he did a lot of those movies, you know, kind of in that, and he was very, very good. I guess, what would you say? Piecemeal kind of a director. Sure.
And I think that he ended up doing a bunch more Cyborg stuff after this.
Yes.
It wasn't necessarily for the same company, obviously.
I think, honestly, the script for this, he wrote it in a weekend.
Yeah. 100%.
So he just like took all of these ideas that he had, threw them all together, and came up with the Slinger idea, which was supposed to be a little bit more drawn out. What's cool about this movie is they start right in the middle. They don't really give you a lot of explanation of what happened.
No, you pick it up as you go.
Correct.
And this is Pune coming off of Sword and Sorcerer, which, like, that was another movie where he did a lot with a little.
Yes.
You know?
Oh, and then the infamous movie
Captain America. Yeah, knew you were going to go there.
From 1990. Oh my God. The Matt Salinger vehicle for Stardom, which was just horrible.
That worked out well.
I mean, he did Brain Smasher, and I don't know if you've ever seen that one.
I have not.
Brain Smasher has Andrew Dice Clay in it.
Okay.
And basically he's a bouncer, and it's got, who was Lois Lane in the TV series at that point? Terry Hatcher.
Yeah.
And they call him Brain Smasher because he does smash brains.
Oh, well, that works out. A little on the nose, but okay.
Yeah. Exactly.
I mean, we're in an era where movies were called stuff like Kickboxer.
Yeah. I mean, he had The Sword and the Sorcerer, which I need to go back and rewatch that one.
It's been a long time since I've seen that. That was a good movie back in the day. It was kind of creepy.
Right.
And like I said, I think the thing is like you could tell he was doing a lot with a little.
Yeah.
You
well,
know?
and I mean, he has Alien from L.A. with Kathy Ireland.
I don't remember that.
What, Doll Man?
Doll Man, I do remember that. Mostly for the Doll Man versus Demonic Toys.
Yes,
movie.
that's right. Yeah, those are those full moon features.
I almost said Dangerous Toys, which was like a band from like the 80s.
Yeah, I know, right? I always get those mixed up too, for real. But no, at that point, I remember seeing his name on a lot of shit and always being like, Albert Pune, that's just a crazy kind of a name. But I didn't ever correlate the Sword and the Sorcerer one.
Okay.
You know?
And this movie's not bad. It's not a bad movie. There's the fact that he wrote it in a weekend. Like you said, he already had some ideas. He just put them together.
Right.
To make something, you know, which is cool.
Yeah, he kind of he mixed this dystopian society. They probably told him, okay, we got sets for this, and this is what it looks like.
That's what
we have costumes for this. So what are you going to do? And he's like, fuck, I don't know.
What do you want me to do?
Yeah, exactly. So that's like a Milius kind of a thing to do, is really just come into it and fucking put your own stamp on it, but make it to where it's digestible, and it actually turns out to be a fucking great movie.
Yep.
You know, this is where everybody was introduced to this other side of Van Damme, because everybody knew Kickboxer, and then you had
Not Kickboxer.
Kickboxer wasn't Bloodsport. Yeah, Bloodsport. Yeah. So you have Bloodsport, which that was his basic, like, hey, Van Damme's here.
Yeah,
he can do the splits.
What's the first movie you remember seeing him in? Because I don't remember him being in Breakin'.
Bloodsport.
Okay.
Yeah. No, it was Bloodsport because at that point, and this is that period, I don't know what to call it, of this kind of action hero. It was not these...
It wasn't Arnold Schwarzenegger, Stallone.
Giant. Yeah, those guys that's like ultimate action. That's beyond, like, they'll kill, like, fucking 700 people, like, in Commando.
Sure,
you know what I mean? He
sure.
takes down a whole fucking army.
Well, yeah.
And then it wasn't like a Mad Max where, you know, it was just the one dude against, like, a faction of people every once in a while. But this was, like, almost like an everyday kind of a hero in a way.
Okay.
Always marked by tragedy. And then you got, fucking, what's his nuts? Seagal. And I'm thinking Don the Dragon Wilson, a lot of those guys in that era from like 86 to like maybe 92 when shit like that was going on. So it kind of replaced the over the top blockbuster fucking I'm going to pop out of the ground with a fucking machine gun type shit, you know, Expendables.
Right.
Those dudes were Expendables, you know, and then you have the second
wave.
Yeah.
Second Expendables.
Yeah, the second wave with Seagal, which he's like, oh, all I do is move my hands and eat pizzas.
Stallone told a story about having Seagal and Jean-Claude Van Damme at his house.
Uh-oh.
And I guess Jean-Claude Van Damme was so tired of hearing Seagal say he could kick his ass. He's like, let's go. They were going to go in Stallone's backyard and fight. And Seagal disappeared. He like left. Jean-Claude Van Damme tracked him down to a club and challenged him again. He's like, no. Because he would die.
He's a fucking piece of shit.
Yeah, he is a piece of shit. And I'm not saying he doesn't know Aikido, but Aikido is meant to...
It's defensive, isn't
It's
it?
defensive against swords, specifically. And I'm not saying you can't work that in with other martial arts and do cool things. I'm not saying that, but I'm also saying that look at Jean-Claude Van Damme. Look at Steven Seagal. No.
Van Damme also was a professional.
Yeah, he was a kickboxer.
He wasn't that great. And literally...
Apparently you didn't see No Retreat, No Surrender, sir. He was awesome.
But the thing was, is like, if you look at his actual fight, and his fights, and they do have them listed, I forgot where, but every time he was down in the points or he was about to get his ass kicked, but he won in the last second.
That's right.
Total fucking blood sport.
Yep.
I was like, what the fuck? Well,
and I mean, if you just looked at them, especially at that time, even now, but we're not going to talk about what Steven Seagal looks like now. But at that time,
he's a fucking couch.
You're not wrong. Van Damme, not only more athletic overall, just so much stronger. Oh my God, dude. Could you imagine getting punched, especially in his prime?
The muscles from Brussels, man.
Yeah, no way, dude.
Dude was, his kicks are the ones that you really look at.
Yeah, of course.
And because he uses his legs with everything. First, he had to do the splits, and this one he
has to do splits in every movie.
He has his iconic splits.
Yeah, sometimes it's to dodge electricity and being electrocuted. Sometimes it's to kick two people in the head at the same time. Sometimes it's between two trucks in a commercial.
Yes, and his daughter is doing the same thing now, too.
Oh, is she?
Mm-hmm. She's good at the splits.
Really?
Yes.
She's like, you know what's really good in my family? Our family's really good at the splits. That's how we. That's how we got our family crest. It's just two legs,
and just like pushing the fucking shield apart. You can just see it breaking through.
Absolutely.
This was just this kind of started off. I don't know, my really liking a Van Damme, because everybody did after this movie. I mean, you had Bloodsport, then you had this, and it was like everything he did was fucking cool.
Yeah.
You know? Just like Seagal.
So here's what I think with Seagal. We're going to go off on a little tangent here. When I was young, like the early Seagal movies, I really liked those movies.
Yeah.
And I thought, this is more realistic. You know, this more realistic style of fighting. Not everybody's doing, spinning head kicks and things like that. You know what I mean?
Right.
But it's kind of fatty. And what I mean by that is, like, it was similar, even though it was different, because it was, again, he was using Aikido. That's something that's, defensive against swords. And not everybody's using a sword. But kind of like Liam Neeson bringing Krav Maga into the limelight in those Taken movies.
Yes.
You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Similar.
Yeah.
Similar. But I think as a kid, you get misconstrued because you're like, oh, well, this is badass. It's gritty. It's real.
Right.
It's not. But
Yeah. What if
At the end of the day, Jean-Claude Van Damme still destroys Steven Seagal. That's all I'm saying.
I think he destroys a lot of people. I really like
Except for Dolph Lundgren.
Oh,
Nobody
no.
destroys Dolph.
Fuck no, because he's fucking...
He's smarter than you. He's stronger than you. He's bigger than you. He's a better fighter than you.
Yes.
You lose.
Yes, you lose every time.
Yeah.
And now he speaks fluent English.
Yes. Yes.
I mean, he was fucking He-Man, for
And he's
Christ's
still
sake.
a biochemist.
Yes, exactly. Him and Peter Weller get together, they're going to take over the world.
Yeah, yeah. You don't even get to be in those conversations.
Yeah. PhDs are fucking
They're
like...
flying around.
They're like, we don't even talk about our PhDs
we wipe
anymore.
our asses with PhDs.
Because I just got another one. But no, Dolph Lundgren's part of that crew. You know, I think of this.
That's the
this
one
later
person
crew.
out of all of those people, though. That's the one person, like, if I had to choose a person not to fight,
It'd be him.
it'd be him 100%. Especially if we're talking in their prime. Right now, he's like, he could probably kick my ass still.
Oh, yeah.
But he's like 70.
Yeah.
So I still have I have a much stronger chance of beating him than when he was 30.
Yeah. Yeah. When he was 30, yeah, you didn't fuck with him. Or Van Damme.
No.
Or Schwarzenegger. Well, Schwarzenegger was, I mean, he was just, that's something else.
That's
like
a
a
different
Bruce
monster,
Lee.
yeah.
It's like Bruce Lee. Totally fucking different. Bruce Lee is the king of all movie fighter dudes ever.
Well, the difference is that Arnold Schwarzenegger's not a prestigious fighter. He's just a
Power.
Yeah, he's a big dude, and I mean, there's a reason. Didn't he win Mr. Universe like 5 years in a row or something?
Oh my God.
Or like 6 like uncontested ones or something. I don't
Yeah.
know.
Even the last one
Different
was filmed.
monster than these guys who could actually fight.
Yeah. Exactly.
You know what I mean?
Yeah. I mean, yeah, he did. I mean, he was just a puncher, just kind of like Stallone was. And Stallone never really was like a action martial arts hero.
Oh no,
Maybe that's the tie right there. That's the
Yeah.
difference.
these guys could actually fight.
Yes, because you had, because you
But you
had
had Chuck Norris in MIA.
Yes.
Missing in action movies.
Yeah, he
and
was
he's
in
a
that.
different,
for sure.
but he's not as huge and
Yes.
I
He
don't
didn't.
know. He was more the Bruce Lee time for him too.
Yeah,
you
I
know?
mean, he was kind of a leftover from that era.
he just rolled over into it. Yeah,
Exactly.
yeah.
Exactly. He kind of came into his own with Cannon in all of their Invasion
Yeah.
USA and everything like that. So he was always there. He was always a lone wolf.
Yes.
Really, for real.
Lone Wolf McQuaid.
And
Yeah.
then you have the two powerhouses. You got fucking Schwarzenegger and fucking Stallone.
He was like 5'8".
Yeah. Stallone. Yeah. He's ripped like a julienne salad. And then you got these guys that are using the martial arts. So that's the difference.
That's the difference.
Yes,
that really is
right
the
there.
difference. They can actually fight.
And at this point, Van Damme's not an actor.
No.
Never really has been. Of course, my favorite is Hard Target.
Sure.
Just because fucking that movie rules.
I think the first movie that I really liked the most of his, like, don't get me wrong, I liked Kickboxer and I liked all, Bloodsport, all those movies. Lionheart, they're all the same movie, whatever.
Yeah, pretty much.
But I really liked Death Warrant.
Yeah, that was a
good movie where he went to prison and all that jazz.
Yeah.
Yeah, and fought the guy and then kicked the Sandman.
Yeah, and then
Kicked him into the incinerator and then he came out on fire.
And then you also had, what was it? Sudden Death, which was Die Hard on Ice.
Yeah, that was a little later. That was like in the mid-90s.
Yeah, it was a little more grounded.
Yeah, there was kids involved.
Powers Booth.
I don't know if that one came out first or Nowhere to Run, but those were the same kind of where it was a little more grounded movies actually trying to act and do things now.
Yeah.
All pre-Time Cop.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah. Time Cop was, what can you say? That's the tippy top.
Even without it being a Jean-Claude Van Damme movie, it was a good fucking movie.
Yeah, it's cool.
Like that intro where like he's robbing the stagecoach.
Yes.
I'm like, okay, let's go.
Yeah.
You know?
There's so many cool fucking things that he did. And this one really did kind of open you up to kind of like a Mad Max / fucking martial arts.
Well, I was getting ready to say, this was, I think, a great movie for us to do because I think it's a very under-the-radar movie for people who don't really know or didn't watch a lot of those movies back in the day.
Yeah.
Even people who I think that were big cinephiles back in the day, as you are when you're a kid.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
Maybe miss this one. And you're right. This is, with the exception of maybe Universal Soldier, Time Cop, this is really his first foray into sci-fi.
Yeah.
You know?
This was his roots in sci-fi.
Yeah.
Right here. This really did establish him in that world in a weird way, like Mel Gibson, Mad Max, kind of. That was not necessarily sci-fi, but it kind of was.
Well, it was. It was.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was like sci-fi based on something
Nuclear.
happening that hasn't.
Yeah.
You know.
Dystopian.
Yes.
This.
My first seeing of Jean-Claude Van Damme was No Retreat, No Surrender. So many times I watched this movie because I remember we had HBO and it was on all the time. Like when it, you know,
Yeah.
and I was martial arts, Bruce Lee. Like I'm a kid,
Yeah.
and like the whole premise of that is this guy is like talking and being trained by Bruce Lee's ghost. The main antagonist that they bring in to fight him because he's just a dorky kid is Jean-Claude Van Damme.
I have not seen that movie in fucking forever.
I haven't seen it in forever either, but it's one of those movies where like I watched it so many times I could probably still tell you beat by beat.
Yeah.
Kind of like North Shore. If you ever watched that, it's a surfing movie from back in around that same time.
But it was one of the movies that was sold to the cable.
Yeah. So I watched the shit out of it. You
So
know?
it was on all the time.
Yeah.
One of those
You know,
fucking
back
movies.
when you got those magazines, the HBO Cinemax movies.
Yeah, you get the little, the one that are in the hotels now.
Yep.
Don't peel the sticker, because I like to peel the sticker myself. Don't mess with my TV guide. Second shelf is for Grandpa. No,
Lost Boys right there?
Yes.
Yeah.
No. I really think that this, especially to me, kind of introduced me a little bit more to the sci-fi stuff. And thinking about this movie last night and watching what I've been watching, I'm like, man, I don't know if I like sci-fi more than horror, but I like them both put together. This is different because it's all sci-fi.
Yeah, I would say that for me, that's not a choice. I like them both, and I like when they overlap as well.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I wouldn't say I like one more than the other necessarily.
Yeah.
You know,
I think I watch a little bit more sci-fi now.
Okay.
Than I did back in the day. It was all horror.
I watched both, I think, a lot.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I think that was kind of wheelhouse shit, you know?
Yeah. And then fucking this movie comes out and you're like, whoa, that's a cool gun. You know, whoa, he can fight. He's crucified. There's so many cool things about it. And even, now I guess we can get into the other principles beside Van Damme because we're all like, hey, Van Damme, come over.
Yeah.
Hang out with us, you know?
Don't. That's fine.
Because you're so fucking cool, man. You had so many different character actors in this movie. I know one of the dudes that I always remembered was the really big hairy dude that was in Gladiator.
Yeah.
You know, that guy.
He's from the Split scene.
Yes.
That we'll get to, I'm sure.
Yeah. And we're not going to go
through
scene.
but so let's just get it out there real quick. Well, I know we're not even into the plot or anything, but there is an awesome split scene in this, as there is in every Jean-Claude Van Damme movie.
Yes. This is the one that fucking put him over the top.
So he is between two, like in a corridor, and he does the splits so that he's way up above.
But he's not really. It's only
a
door.
I don't want to talk about that yet. We'll get there. So he's up above, and the guy can't see him when he's walking through.
Because it's dark sewer.
And he has a knife.
Yeah.
That he lovingly sharpened earlier in the movie. We'll get into that. It's a little weird.
Yeah.
And then, drops down to cut this dude, who happens to be the big hairy guy from Gladiator.
Yes.
I don't know that guy's name off the top of my head.
I used to know what it was.
Big hairy guy.
Ralph Moeller.
Okay.
His name is Brick Bardo.
Ah, gotcha. Yeah.
Yeah.
But so that's your obligatory Jean-Claude Van Damme split scene in this movie.
And that's the one that everybody's like, wow, he's doing the splits over a doorway.
But, okay.
With no ceiling?
Yeah, there's no ceiling. The guy was walking, I know it's dark, but he was walking a long way. Did he never look up?
Probably not, because he was being so still. Van Damme was, like, extremely still.
He was extremely
and
still.
then,
I thought you were, like, talking about the guy was being, I'm like...
No, he was walking.
He was walking.
No,
was
it's
Drax.
It's like he had his
still nobody can see me move.
He had his hands on the knife, you know.
Yeah.
Like, And
Up
then-
against his chest.
Yeah, and then he like fucking does the whole like, like, why are you taking your time? Just fucking do it, man.
Well, he's got to focus. He's getting one shot, one opportunity.
His
Mom's
chi.
spaghetti. That's his mom's spaghetti right there.
His chi, he's gathering it all.
Focus your chi into this one downward motion.
Now the other principals in this, I guess the Nady Simmons woman. Okay, Jean-Claude Van Damme plays Gibson Rickenbacker, which all the names are a musical instrument.
So
types,
much,
weird
so
shit.
much to the point where I was like, why? This is just lazy. This is lazy. Like somebody who had like a little musical background was like, okay, Gibson.
Yeah.
Okay.
His two favorites.
Rickenbacker. Okay.
Nady Simmons.
Okay, we're gonna need a
Sound.
Fender. That's a bad guy.
Yeah.
I can tell.
And his last name is Tremolo.
Yeah. What the fuck is going on?
Pearl Prophet. Marshall Strat. Fucking yeah, Marshall Strat. And it was like, okay, a Strat and a Marshall. You got Hendrix.
Yeah.
Gibson Rickenbacker, maybe because it's two different guitars, so it's not an amp.
Yeah,
you know?
yeah.
And then, oh God, who else? I think that was pretty much it on the main ones. You know.
Yeah. But it was just so weird, dude. Like every time it popped up, I'm like, what is going on?
Yeah.
I didn't remember that from being a kid. You
Me
know
neither.
What I mean? I was like,
Not only it was a couple of years ago that I did, and I was like, oh. And then when I was researching it, I was like, oh shit, yeah. Ugh.
lazy bitches.
Yeah, right. Deborah Richter is Nady Simmons, and she must be the blonde with the big boobs. Yeah.
Yeah, she's the companion.
Yes.
Yes.
That immediately is like sploosh.
Yes. Yes.
Whenever they're hanging out, it's like it's hot in here now.
He's over there like having some man love with his knife.
I guess
It's like weird. Dude.
she like went swimming and her lips are all like fucking fucked up looking. But yeah, not bad to look at, right? And then Vincent Kiln, he's the Fender Tremolo. He's the bad guy. I remember him a lot from
What's
Point
his
Break.
last name?
Kiln.
Klein?
Vincent Klyn, Klyn, Klyn.
Yeah, I thought it was Klein, but it could be Klein.
Klyn.
Wouldn't be Kiln.
No.
That's not
That
how
would be a
words
YL.
work.
But you never know.
But anyways, doesn't matter.
He could be from somewhere weird.
New Zealand, actually.
See, he was in what was the fucking
What we do with What we do in shadows? No, he wasn't.
No. Point Break, Double Dragon.
Yeah.
Point Break, he was only really
Double
small.
Dragon. Ooh, there's a movie.
He was in an Ice-T movie. That's weird.
Which one?
Gangland.
Oh, okay.
But he has a distinctive look.
Those eyes are pretty piercing. He's a huge guy, first off, and he's a surfer by nature, so he's like built too.
Yeah.
Because I think if you're that big and you're surfing, boy,
You have to be
have
pretty
some,
fucking...
you have to be pretty balanced, pretty. You know what I mean? Like you're gonna be pretty athletic.
Right.
But he has very piercing, like pale blue eyes.
Yeah, the eyes are the thing that really does it. But those were actual contacts that he had in this.
Oh, really?
Yeah, and
I thought that was just his eyes because his eyes look like that in other things too.
right. And
People just do that when he gets there. No, you have to put these contacts.
Yeah,
in.
well, they only had like 2 or 3 sets, and he lost them all. And then also they were so uncomfortable because of all the dust that it was just really, it kind of fucked him up.
It's a very deserty movie,
Right,
post-apocalyptic. kind
In the
of
same
deal.
cement factory,
Yeah,
over
you
and
know.
over again.
Yeah,
It's like
you
they
do.
always meet there, and there's a boat outside and weird. I think it was all shot in like a North Carolina or something like that too, in a kind of a weird spot to shoot. Then you got Marshall Strat, which he was the one of the older dudes. You know,
Older dudes.
he was the one that sent Pearl Prophet, which was Dale Haddon, out on her mission. You know, to go. So
And she hasn't really done a ton, has she?
not really.
She was a swimsuit model back in the day for Sports Illustrated.
She kind of reminds me of Linda Carter. She looks a lot like Linda Carter.
Actually, her filmography is way bigger than I thought it would be.
She's been in a lot of stuff. North Dallas 40.
Yeah. It's just not a ton of stuff that you know.
Nope. Gambling City. Oh man, what a fucking movie. And Spermula? Wow.
I mean, how can you go wrong?
Right. But other than that though, most of everything is kind of, most of the other dudes are, you know, they're They're the backgrounds. Yeah, they're the background characters that you see in everything. You're like, oh, for real? But let's get into that overall arcing plot synopsis type of a fucking deal here. Now, basically, we don't know what killed.
It was a plague. That's all we know.
Yeah, in the future, but it like wiped out everything.
Yeah.
And there's these people called slingers, which Van Damme is one, and they escort people out of these crazy cities, so they escape. And I guess fucking Fender is like
he's like a warlord.
Warlord of this area.
Yeah.
He loves the world because he is something in it.
Well, and we have him spewing that out in that monologue at the beginning about why change, I love it, blah, blah, blah. Chaos or whatever he said.
I like chaos. Yeah, well, here it goes. First, there was the collapse of civilization.
But you don't have to read all that because we're going to actually put it at the beginning of the episode.
Anarchy, genocide, and starvation. That's all I'm going to say.
Okay. Yeah, so a lot of shit went down. There was some sort of plague, wiped a bunch of folks out, made a lot of sand everywhere.
Yes.
Because plagues do that, in case you didn't know. Makes everything deserty.
Makes it dirty.
Yeah.
A lot of fire still burning. Weird.
Yeah. Yes, you do.
And so we have this major character, which her name is the Nady Simmons, right? Or Pearl Prophet.
Pearl Prophet, yeah.
Pearl Prophet basically is trying to get out of Atlanta.
No, she's trying to get to Atlanta.
Oh, get to Atlanta.
That's where the CDC is.
Yes.
Just like Walking Dead.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah, everybody's trying to get to that CDC, son.
Yeah. So it's basically a cure that she's working on, right? And we don't really know a lot of
She has some
extra
information, yeah.
Yeah. And we don't see her transformation, but at one point we get to see that she is a cyborg.
Well, yeah, and we get to see that she volunteered
to become
one so that they could get this information, whatever, get all the stuff they needed together for trying to find a cure.
Yeah. And Fender is like, fuck that.
Yeah, he's like,
no, I want to live this way.
Well, great. We're going to go back to bureaucracy.
Yeah, we're pirates, bitch.
There's no red tape.
So they make that uneasy, like, let's go 2 blocks and get busted.
Yeah.
Kind of a deal.
Which they did.
Yeah, and Van Damme comes out and he ends up like fighting them, right? They get into a pretty good, scrap. And then all of a sudden he gets knocked out.
Yeah.
So where was the introduction of the other woman? Nady Simmons.
That's later. That's just a little bit later, I believe, when she shows up, right?
Yeah, she is not that much further, So basically, Fender captures the main woman at the very beginning.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, because she's with Marshall Stratt, and they're in New York trying to get to Atlanta.
Oh.
So he's like the warlord over New York, which is, I assume, a pretty big warlord.
Right.
As things go. So it's a lot of folk.
So they're on their way to Atlanta, the lost city of Atlanta.
Right.
So basically they're
lost city of Atlanta.
It's from Futurama. So basically she shows up, right? Kind of as he's going after, I guess, the other woman, right? The cyborg.
Right.
And she kind of takes him for a, I don't know, like another pirate or some shit. She's like, scurvy. There she blows. And so basically they hook up at that point because he's like, no, you can come with me. Her whole family, I guess, is wiped out or some shit like that, You're
okay.
Yeah, they don't really go a lot. It's kind of a weird, like, here's everything, and here's where you're going. So it doesn't really change a lot,
Right.
They're walking through the woods, I think, at one point, and he hears something, and he just takes off. She's like, what the fuck are you doing? Where are you going? He, like, drops everything, grabs his fucking little boomerang knife.
Right.
And then just kind of runs off, right? So they get to the coast because they're trying to beat Fender. But he's on a boat that he stole with
So-
all of his other pirate dudes.
So yeah, at this point, Fender has Pearl, and he's gonna take her back to the CDC, supposedly, right? Because she's like, yeah, there'll be great rewards or something like that, and blah 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 blah.
Right.
And that's when, because Nady attacks him.
Mm-hmm.
That's right. And then they are trying to beat the boat, basically,
Right.
to Atlanta.
Well, when they get there,
Head off with a pass.
yeah. Well, they get there and they try it,
Yeah.
and that's when they're in that's the first real big fight scene.
Yes.
They're in the old cement factory. And, you know, I mean, Van Damme does a lot of ass kicking in this shit. You know what I mean? And he's about to get killed by, like, one dude is going to throw a knife at him while he's, like, hanging.
Yeah.
You know, he's like, and he swoops down and he picks up his fucking paintball gun. It's like, "Fa-doof, fa-doof," you know? And so he gets into a pretty good fight. They still continue to run away. And, of course, the Nady woman, she's knocked out. So
Right.
that's how they get into the sewer, you know, because they're escaping all the other people.
Right.
And, of course, you know, Fender's like a badass. He's like, come on, you know, and he's got those fucking, like, hillbilly sunglasses on.
Yes.
The guys you see mudding with. So they go after him. And that's when Home Dude dies in the sewer with the splits.
Yeah.
They get out in this weird... The sewer pops out in the fucking middle of a canal.
Yeah, it was weird. Like, I thought they were in a rice paddy when I originally... Well, like when I was a kid watching
exactly,
it.
Exactly.
Probably because of the time frame.
But that's a pretty good fight because he does, like, take on a lot of people. And then the other woman starts fighting.
Right.
And she's fighting like a badass pirate woman, too, and cuts off her arm.
Yeah, she does.
Fucking does really well.
As you do.
Okay. And so basically it gets to where they're all basically on the beach. And there's a boat there and everything. And Fender kicks the shit out of it. I think I counted it. Gibson takes like, what is it? I think it was like 13 to 15 punches from Fender before he falls down.
Yeah.
And he's already killed a couple people. You know, he's just a badass. And then that's when basically Gibson notices the girl that's with him
Right.
was from his past.
That's when we get that whole story, that little arc, right?
Yes, where he actually fell in love. He was a slinger back in the day. He's thinking about quitting the life because he's got a family that he wants to, like...
Well, he takes a girl and her...
Kids.
Yeah.
It was like 2 kids.
Yeah.
It was a little boy and then that girl.
Yeah.
Fender comes along, completely, like, has them strung
So
up on
that is,
wire.
like, the coolest part of that, like... Because, again, this was written in 3 days.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm sure a lot of this came on the fly as they were making it. But how hardcore was it that, like, he's like, here's how, you can save your family.
Yeah.
So he takes the little girl and has the family suspended over a well by barbed wire. So it's like digging through her hands.
So she has no choice.
She has to let go.
Everybody's holding it at one point, and then they let it go, and it just slips through her
Like
hand.
rips right through her hands.
So she at this point she's got to be like 11,
Yeah,
you know,
something.
and now she's older, and like Fender's her main man, you know, right. He's my main man, and so he notices that because he's actually at this point he's getting crucified.
Yeah,
he's getting
Not
crucified on the mast of a ship,
tied.
Yeah.
Not like,
Well, no, they did go through his hands.
Did
yeah,
Jesus?
Because after he gets rescued,
Mm-hmm.
Basically after he rescues himself, and then she shows up and she's like, hey, what's up? Because he's up there and he starts having these flashbacks.
Right.
That really kind of amp him up, and he ends up kicking with his cowboy boots the fucking mast apart because he's so fucking strong, right? And it falls down. She rescues him, and then he kind of opens up his wrist, and you can see that he had like a wound right there.
Oh, I don't remember that. I
So
believe you. I just
they,
don't remember that.
They do have him tied, but they also had him nailed.
Wow.
I don't think on his feet, though. That was the only thing. Well, of course not, because he was fucking kicking the shit.
That was the only way he got out of there.
Durr. So
See, had they paid attention to their Bible, they might have known how to keep him up there.
Exactly.
I mean, it didn't work on Jesus, but hey.
No. He was just like, later.
See you in 3 days.
I'm going to take a little snip.
Need a little 72-hour respite.
So basically, like, it's time.
Yeah. Yeah, it's about to go. They're about to get their boogie on.
And this is really how the whole movie goes. It's just like action scene, action scene. There's really no substance except for the flashbacks.
The flashbacks. Yeah, I was going to say that was really like where we had her doing the thing with the becoming a cyborg, basically, and then the backstory with the young girl and the family and all that and him. And that's really, you're exactly right, because that's really the only thing that you get that's much of a substance.
It's just kind of, it's a really quick movie, but it is a long movie. What's the running time on it? 82 minutes.
So not that long.
So
hour
an
and 22 minutes?
Yeah, so not a lot on that part of it.
But it's very straightforward. There's not a lot of...
Right.
This isn't a, Inception style movie.
Apparently, there's a director's cut that Albert Pune put together because he was fired off of this movie.
Right.
He was fired off his last 6 movies for Canon, for real. They were later, and then Van Damme actually mixed this movie.
He did all the fight cuts. Yeah,
the editing and everything to make it kind of more. And he did the same thing on Bloodsport too.
Right.
So
make it more. Not necessarily even realistic, but just action packed.
Yes, yeah. It was just more action scenes of him. Yeah. He was so vain.
But it looks so much better from this angle.
Right. So basically, they have the plan to meet him in Atlanta before it actually goes down.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So yeah, I mean, you get the backstory of her becoming the fucking cyborg. I think that was before that too, where they show that. Yeah, the eyeball getting popped into her head and shit, So we know that she's extra special. She's the cyborg of Cyborg. Yeah. You know what I mean? Yeah. So
it's not him. He's not a cyborg.
No,
he's just the dude.
He's
that
just
can
a
do
badass.
the splits.
Yeah. So so they get to Atlanta, and they meet him in a parking lot somewhere.
That's Hotlanta.
Yeah, Hotlanta.
Yeah.
They get into a parking lot, but it's actually raining.
Right.
So they get into this fucking massive battle, right? And he actually is fighting Fender toe to toe.
Right.
Really going after it. He's getting his ass kicked at some points, but he's doing ass kicking and everything too.
Right.
And eventually you think he kills him. You're like, yes, he did it. But no, he's not done yet.
No.
Fender comes back and then he eventually hangs him on something. We're done. And it's just kind of that's it.
Yeah. It's a very straightforward movie, but I will say the action's pretty good.
Mm-hmm.
I enjoyed watching this movie. I think it was better because it was only an hour and 22 minutes.
Yeah, you don't need that extra.
Yeah, I don't need you to make this a 3-hour movie of,
him going back and being
this isn't Cyborg in-game.
Yeah.
Going
back to his
Snyder
ponytail.
cut. Yeah.
We don't need no more ponytail in this one. Because it's basically I don't know. I would like to watch Albert Pune's director's cut because I think he released it on his website.
Okay.
Just to kind of see if they did make it even better than it was.
We should have done that before we made this episode.
Yeah.
Well,
maybe it'll be for later days.
Yeah. Maybe after that we can watch the other 3 Cyborg movies he made.
Yeah, the one with Angelina Jolie.
Yeah, that was that's the direct sequel, right?
That's Cyborg 2.
Nemesis?
Something like that. Yeah. Nemesis was a movie he did on his own too.
Yeah, but I think that was part of the Cyborg movies. Or maybe that was not the one, though, with her in it. I don't remember.
I even think that they're in production with a new one.
Really?
Mm-hmm.
I did not see the Angelina Jolie one, but I kind of feel like maybe we need to do it for a drop in deuces.
Yeah, it is part 2.
Yeah.
It is a deuce. But, this movie right here, again, going all the way back to the very beginning of what we were talking about, this was the introduction to something different. It was a return to the martial arts hero. For sure.
I think it kind of reminded me of Mad Max meets Blade Runner to a degree.
Okay.
Not stylistically as far as Blade Runner goes, but just some of the idea behind it,
Yeah. There is no really huge special effects except for the RoboCop-like computer graphics.
Yeah.
It was the Ed 209 shit that they had in there.
Yeah.
So you notice it and you're like, oh, that's fucking cool,
Right.
But I remember this movie just for me growing up was always just a really cool movie. And I don't think it's ever really lost any of its character to me.
This is definitely a movie I remember first watching on VHS.
Mm-hmm.
For sure.
And I watched it on VHS the last couple of weeks in a row.
Nice.
I just had to. It's just one of those things that you're like, yeah, this deserves VHS. It's so good.
So let me ask you this: is this in your top 5 Jean-Claude Van Damme movies?
Oh, of course.
Top 3?
Yes.
Top 2?
No.
Okay.
I'd say it's number 3.
Okay.
Because number 1, of course, Hard Target. Number 2, Bloodsport. Then this one.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
He has a career that you really can't say his best movie was his first.
No. Breaking? He
Yeah.
was Guy in the Crowd. Come on.
Yeah, I've actually, I think I've seen that footage. I mean, when you see him, you're like, oh, it's fucking him. You know?
Of course it is.
And then he does that really fucking shitty dance in the fucking Bloodsport.
Oh, that's right. I forgot about that.
But that was fucking Cyborg, man.
Yeah, there's not really a ton to say about it. It's like stylistically, I think it was still a very good movie considering they were using the bones of other movies, or the backgrounds, the areas.
The director is fired.
Yeah. Like there's a lot that happened around this movie where there was like, here's a bunch of junk, make a movie.
Yeah.
And the guy's like, okay, cool, I can do that this weekend.
Yeah, and
then,
basically Cannon died after this.
Yeah.
So that was it.
Pretty close too, yeah.
You know, and they actually made a decent profit on this one. If you'd say they put in 2 and they made 10.
They put in 500,000.
Well,
10.
The $2 million with the other movies.
Oh yeah, well that
plus
doesn't really count.
And then you really kind of, if you add all that up, they
either
still
way, they was still like 4 times what they.
But not as much as what they paid Stallone to do Cobra. Or any of the other Stallone movies.
Right.
You know, so, but yeah, no, I fucking love this movie. I always have. I think it's another movie that I remember my dad always liking too.
Nice.
And it's kind of generational. I think my little brother, he might like it too. Probably. But yeah, no, it's just one of those movies that I think everybody kind of enjoys just because it is only 82 fucking minutes.
Yeah, it's only 82 minutes. And again, I think that a lot of people haven't seen this movie, to be honest with you. Like most of the people that I would even talk to about action movies would be like, yeah, I don't really think I've seen Cyborg.
Cyborg?
I'm like, now if they're a Cannon fan,
yes,
then of course, you know what I mean? Even though this was End of Days Cannon, which was a different monster, you know?
Yeah. Then the height of all the titty movies.
All the titty movies.
This one had titties in it too. Just for a split second.
It did.
But no, that's it. There you go.
That was the whole movie. But I do recommend, like I said, it's one of those things. I had not seen this movie since I was young. And it's not one movie I'd revisited. But it was fun. It was fun. The action was good. If nothing else, Jean-Claude Van Damme's great at cutting action scenes, obviously, because he does a good job with that.
Yeah. He's always done a really good job, and I don't think he had to with John Woo, you know.
Yeah, well, of course.
The
John
master
Woo's
of...
like, I'm pretty good at this. Why don't you just let me do my thing?
Yeah, stand back.
Hold my beer.
Hold my sake.
Yeah, that's racist.
Or beef jerky.
Yeah, there you go. Whatever.
Hold my beef jerky. But that's it.
That's it.
Done.
Let us know what your thoughts are on Cyborg. Here's what I want. What your thoughts are on Cyborg. Had you seen it before we talked about it? What your opinion is? And should we do Cyborg 2 for a drop in deuces? Remembering that a young Angelina Jolie is the lead in this movie.
Gia. Angelina Jolie.
Yeah. So
the late night movie everybody remembers.
That's right. So if you liked Gia and you like Cyborg, I feel like we should do Cyborg 2.
Yes. I think that's on the agenda.
Drop in deuces 2022.
Yes. As always, you can meet us on dropculture.com, dropculturepodcast@gmail.com. You can send us a line through Facebook at Drop Culture, Instagram Drop Culture, fucking Twitter Drop Culture, everything Drop Culture.
Yeah.
Yes. So hit us up. Later, dudes.
Peace.